Hello, my name is Matthew Jackson, and today I want to talk about a YouTube video that I viewed a while back called 5 Stupid Things About the Pro-Life Movement. It was produced and performed by Shives. It was a 5.5-minute video, and he made a lot of points in that 5.5-minute video. And so what I'm going to do today is take some of the points. I can't rebut all of his points, but I'm going to take some of his major points that he made and do what is called a rebuttal video. So Steve, if you happen to be watching this video, I don't know if you will, but you might be, I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and address you directly, assuming that you might be watching the video. At the beginning of the video, 5 Stupid Things About the Pro-Life Movement, you made a disclosure statement saying, I support a woman's right to have an abortion, and I think abortion should be legal, safe, and easily available to those who want it. I would like to ask you some follow-up questions. First, you say it should be legal. Well, to what extent do you think abortion should be legal? In some states, third trimester abortions are outlawed. Are you okay with that? Do you think a mother should have a right to choose to have an abortion in the third trimester? The reason I ask is because I've talked to a lot of pro-abortion people, and they vary in their opinions on how much restriction, or if any, should be on abortion. Some are just first trimester pro-abort, some are first and second, and some are all the way to the 9th month. So where do you fit in on that spectrum? The other question I have for you is, you said that it should be easily available to those who want it. Would this include teenagers, underage, minors, 14, 15, 16, 17? Should they be able to have it without parental consent? Where do you stand on the parental consent issue? So that's basically the questions I have. I have one comment. You said that abortions should be legal, and then you said it should be safe. Well, safe abortion is really a contradiction in terms, because it's always fatal for the baby. So yeah, it may be safe for the mother in most cases, but not for the baby. So let me go ahead and move on now and rebut your 5 stupid things the 5 points that you raised. The first point you raised was not interested in debate. There's really not much to rebut here, because I don't know where you saw these pro-lifers shouting at each other. You say, when you say it's not interested in debate, you say the abortion debate here in the U.S. is that it is not a debate. In a debate, the two sides talk to each other. They respond to each other, others' claims and arguments. In our abortion debate, the two sides mostly just shout slogans at each other, and they are not even shouting slogans at each other. They're shouting at themselves. What venues, or where have you been where you've seen that? Are you talking about pro-lifers going to an abortion mill to protest? Can you give us some context and perspective on that? I really don't know what you mean. Now, that's not to say that what you said is not, it may have some truth to it, because I've been to places where there's just basically shouting matches and exchanges of slogans, but I've been in many cases where there's been cordial conversations, like I'm talking to you right now, where there have been debates. There's been plenty of debates. I've seen plenty of debates on abortion. So I don't know where you've been or what you've seen or what sampling size you saw to draw that conclusion that pro-lifers are not interested in debate, but I can tell you that's not true. And the fact that I'm doing this rebuttal video is proof that I'm responding to your claims and arguments. And I would be more than happy to debate you or any other pro-abort anytime. So there. The second point you brought up, they are using indirect and misleading language. Okay, and us pro-lifers could say the same thing about the pro-aborts as well. But you asked a rhetorical, first of all, you took issue with the term that we call ourselves pro-life. You said, are those who identify as pro-life implying that people on the other side of the argument are anti-life? The answer to that question is yes, and not only were you implying that you're anti-life, but we're saying outright, yes, if you don't agree with us, yeah, you're anti-life. Look, anybody that's okay with the killing of an unborn child by dismemberment, yeah, I would say that that pretty much would qualify them as being pro-death or anti-life. Now, you followed that question up with another question. Are those who identify as pro-choice implying that those on the other side of the argument from them are anti-free will? Well, here's the deal, Steve. If anti-free will means the freedom to hire a hitman to kill somebody that you want dead, yeah, then we would be anti-free will for that. Society puts a lot of restrictions on us, on our behavior. They're called laws. There's a lot of things we can't do. There's nobody anybody who's pro-choice about running stop signs and red lights? Who's pro-choice about homicide? Who's pro-choice about kidnapping? You know, we got to wear our seatbelts. We can't drink and drive. There's a lot of restrictions on our behavior that we can't make choices about. Okay, now a large segment of your video, you talked about crisis pregnancy centers and or known as CPCs. Let me quote you what you said. Many people have no idea that these places are not doctors' offices. These are ardently pro-life operations which exist for the sole purpose of talking women out of having abortions. My response to that is, you say that there's no idea, many people have no idea that they're not doctors' offices. Well, how many people actually have the perception that they are doctors' offices? And the CPCs don't advertise themselves as being doctors' offices. So I don't know where the perception is that they are doctors' offices. If there's any doubt, if a person thinks that they might be, it wouldn't take very long to figure out that they're not. And they'll tell you they're not. In your next quote, you say, very few may offer some extremely basic forms of medical care like pregnancy testing or sonograms, but most offer no medical services of any kind, including qualified counseling. So you don't think that CPCs offer qualified counseling. Okay, well, what qualifies you to evaluate their counseling as qualified or not? For that matter, abortion mills don't offer the full range of medical services either. Most abortion facilities that do abortion are dedicated facilities that do only abortion. Rare hospitals hardly ever do abortions anymore, at least here in Texas. And back in the day, a gynecologist would sometimes do abortions in addition to provide the other services in their doctor's office. But that day is past as well. So most facilities are dedicated to just doing abortions. The only thing medical about doing an abortion is the fact that it's a surgical invasive procedure and the mother has to be sedated. But other than that, there's nothing medical about it because the procedure itself has no health and wellness effect. It does nothing to do to promote health and wellness. The only intent in an abortion is to end the life of a human being. That's it. Being pregnant is not a disease or an illness. So there's no medical necessity to have that abortion. Okay, so you could say the same thing about abortion mills as you said about crisis pregnancy centers. Now, one thing about crisis pregnancy centers that you need to take into account, or I think you should, is that they are operating on shoestring budgets. They operate on donations, and they don't charge any of the women who come there for counseling. The women there come there on their own free will. Nobody makes them come. Nobody makes them stay. As soon as they find out they're not a doctor's office, they're free to leave if they want to, but they choose to stay. They choose to listen to the information. They make their own choices for themselves. The CPCs do not make the choices. CPCs have nothing to gain financially if the mother decides to keep the baby. Unlike the abortion mills, they have everything to gain if the mother chooses to abort, because they are a business, a money-making, profit-making business, unlike the CPCs. So when you say that CPCs are dedicated to just for the sole purposes of talking women out of abortions, yes, but also they're there to provide alternatives to abortion. Do you have a problem, Steve, if a woman decides not to have an abortion, carries her baby to terms, gives birth, and then gives up her baby to adoption to a couple that can't have children? Is there anything wrong with that? Do you have a problem with that? Well, CPCs help set that up. They have a database of adoption agencies and lawyers who specialize in adoption that can help set that up free. Okay? There was a situation a while back last summer in 2015 where a girlfriend and a boyfriend were driving to the abortion mill. They went inside the abortion mill. The boyfriend came out and drove off. I guess he went off on an errand or something. About 5 minutes later, maybe 10, something like that, the pre-abortive mother came out. And she came up to one of our sidewalk counselors and asked her, "Can you help me? I had an abortion 3 years ago. I don't want to go through this again. My boyfriend forced me to have an abortion. It was the worst decision I ever made in my life. I don't want to do this again. Can you get me out of here before my boyfriend comes back? Because if he finds out I'm not going to get an abortion, he's going to beat me." Okay? The sidewalk counselor took her to a CPC. The CPC has contacts with homes for unwed mothers and places where unwed mothers can stay in the event they're pressured by family or their boyfriends to have an abortion, and that they could go back to an abusive situation. One of the reasons I think pro-choice is such a joke, because the people who call themselves pro-choice I don't see them standing up for the mother who chooses not to have an abortion. Okay, so I'd like to see you guys who are pro-abort stand up for the women who don't want to have abortions, but I don't see that happening. Okay, so that's why I think pro-choice is a farce. You said your last statement about CPCs is many of these operations are closely affiliated with fundamentalist churches. I don't know what you mean by fundamentalist. I think you might mean evangelicals. That's a more popular term to describe evangelicals as opposed to fundamentalists. If you want to use fundamentalists, fine, go ahead. I'll answer to both. But evangelicals is more common term to use. But more importantly, crisis pregnancy centers were actually started, and the idea of crisis pregnancy centers came from Roman Catholics. Roman Catholics have done a lot with the crisis pregnancy centers. They were starting them in the 70s, long before the evangelicals ever got into the fight against abortion. So really, don't leave those guys out. Point number 4, let me take a water break here. You say protests using provocative and deceptive images. You say the people who do this are older white people, mostly men, who hold placard-sized pictures of aborted babies in front of the abortion mills. And you describe that tactic as it's a cheap and dirty and disgraceful tactic. Okay. You know, the irony of this is it's really amazing. people are more offended by us showing pictures of aborted babies than they are of the abortionist actually aborting the babies. That's so ironic, how pro-lifers are held more accountable for their behavior in front of the mills showing the abortionist handiwork than the abortionists themselves. Needless to, one point I wanted to make is putting the signs out have a twofold purpose. Obviously, the first purpose is we do want to persuade the pre-abortive mother to have mercy on her baby and not have the abortion. Okay. Now, the other reason is also there's motorists driving by the abortion mill that are not abortion mill patrons, but are just driving by, and it has good educational value and awareness. So we do it for that reason as well. Look, you pro-aborts are the one who thinks that abortion is so great and liberating for women. It's just such a wonderful thing. Well, if abortion's that great, then why do you have a problem when we tell the truth about what is going on in the abortion mills? Pro-choice in its true form, in its true definition, is you bring all the facts about abortion and put them on the table. Then you let the person decide which way they want to go. If you withhold information and don't give them all the information, then they're making an uninformed or misinformed choice. Well, I don't think an uninformed and misinformed choice is pro-choice. Crisis pregnancy centers are very pro-choice because they give all the facts about abortion to the pre-abortive mother. After they get all the facts, they're free to leave. In fact, some, very few, but some have gotten abortions after they've been to the CPCs, after they've heard their presentation. The vast majority don't, thank God. But so if a pre-abortive mother is seeing a picture of an aborted baby for the first time as she enters the abortion mill, that means the abortion providers haven't done their job. She should already know what a aborted baby looks like after it's been aborted, if she really is informed about abortion. And so you think that we're being cheap, dirty, and disgraceful? So, let me move on to point number 5 in the best interest of time. Point number 5 is you accuse us of having hypocritical selective empathy. You say, ever notice how many people who identify as pro-life are also political conservatives who tend to oppose social welfare programs that aid the poor? So you think, I think you're making a mistake here. You're assuming because we oppose government-run welfare programs that we oppose helping the poor who are already born. And I think that's a false assumption on your part. We support welfare and helping the poor, but we prefer to do that at the local level through private organizations and churches because they do a better and more efficient job of doing it. And they're able to screen out those who really need help and those who don't. The federal government and state governments, they're a lot more sloppy, they're wasteful, they're inefficient. Most of the money that goes to these programs goes to pay the bureaucrats. Only a small percentage of that money actually goes to the people that they're trying to help. These programs often encourage bad behavior, irresponsible choices. There's hardly any accountability with the welfare recipient when the government runs it because the government doesn't understand what causes poverty. Poverty is more of a spiritual and cultural problem than it is an economic problem. If you make bad choices in life, you're more likely to live in poverty. They don't take that into account. The local private organizations and churches do. So we do favor helping the poor. We just don't do it, don't support it at the government level. We don't think socialism is the answer. Taking money out of my pocket and putting it in somebody else's pocket whom the government thinks is necessary, who needs it, is not compassion. Keeping people in a cycle of poverty and dependency is not compassion. Welfare, in its true definition, means that you're just helping someone out temporarily till they can get back on their feet. But we have real welfare recipients today that have been on it for generations, for several years. If you're on it for several years, like more than 10 years, 15, 20, there's something wrong. Okay? So anyway, that's my rebuttal to your 5 stupid things about the pro-life movement. Thank you for watching. Ciao.